Good morning, and welcome to Your Home Sold Guaranteed Radio Show with Wally Kerr. I'm your host, Dave McKay. We join you every Saturday morning at 7 a.m. Good morning, Wally.
Good morning, Dave.
Let's go ahead and just roll right into it. What is the market update? What's the market doing this week?
Yeah, so let's talk today again about what the market's doing, what's different from last week compared to this week. Just to kind of give you an idea, Dave, there were 504 new listings over the last week in the Oklahoma City multi-list, but about 629 sales. So sales outpaced new listings by about 27-28% this last week.
Well, it's that time of the year. School is out. People are making those moves. It's buying season, right?
And it's definitely selling season. And it's a great time to buy and sell. And I'll tell you what I think is different this week than what we talked about last week.
Okay.
Dave, we've talked the last 2, 3, 4 weeks about the possibility that rates would begin to drop, and maybe as early as July or August of this year. But here comes the Fed again. You know, we've been talking about the Fed for months and months, and I think we'll talk about the Fed a lot until rates begin to pull back. So the Fed has still identified that there is inflation in the marketplace. The signs of inflation are higher than what is desired. They look at the jobless rates, the consumer price index, all that stuff. And it kind of looks now like the Fed may continue just to hold rates where they are. And they may even do another Fed's rate increase, which, again, is just what the Fed charges in its overnight rate to loan money to banks. And so it looks like they might have another increase this year, and who knows, maybe 2 increases. I still think we'll begin to see rates begin to fall off nearer the end of the year. Don't know exactly when that's going to be, but I would tell you this. I think this is my statement this week. I believe that if you're going to buy or sell, you should do it and not wait for rates to come down. Remember that you can always refinance, right?
Yes.
You can always go in, and a lot of lenders give you great options to refinance. But if your family needs to buy a home or sell a home to get where you need to be, I don't see any reason to wait, and I don't see any big changes in mortgage rates over the next 2 or 3 or 4 months unless inflation slows more than it has, and unless the consumer price index gets a whole lot better. And there's a lot of economic things that go in there, and I'm certainly not an economist, but I don't think that you're going to see a big change in rates. I think things are going to hold pretty steady, and they could go up a little bit more, so I just don't see the reason to wait.
Okay.
And to give you an idea, over the last 10 weeks, I just looked at some national information, and over the last 10 weeks, the average rate for a 30-year mortgage, if you've got a good credit score and good income and you borrow, let's say around $200,000 or above, it's ranged between about 6.43%, so call it 6.4 to 6.8. And that's the range we're in right now. This last week, we saw mortgage rates hovering around, let's say, 6 3/4, just a little bit above, a little bit below, again, depending on your credit score and how much you're going to borrow.
So, yeah, it's the right time of the year to buy, and interest rates are cooperating so far.
So we'll continue to watch the economic news that comes out and what the Fed does. And it's just really, Dave, I think it's going to be a month-by-month topic for us, even week by week. But big changes in mortgage rates, I don't see them right now. Looks like I think things are going to stay pretty steady, and we can all be hopeful that rates will begin to pull back later this year. But again, if you need to buy or you need to sell, I think this is a great time to do it. I'd consider it a privilege to help your family in either selling a home, buying a home, or doing both. And I hope you'll call me at 330-3000 if I can help you or your family in any way.
Okay, so I know we have some pretty good topics to talk about today. First-time home buyers. We've talked about they can get, depending on what kind of programs there are, there's some special rates that they can get and special programs to take advantage of. But advice for first-time home buyers, what do they need to think about, maybe even before they're going out to look at homes, how much money they can bring to the table, credit score, down payments, all that stuff. Give us advice for a first-time home buyer.
You know, Dave, I love selling $500,000 and $1 million homes, but I'm going to tell you something else. I love working with first-time buyers. They're just so appreciative, and they want to understand the process. And when you help them learn, they know that that's information they're going to use for a lifetime.
Yes.
They know they're not going to live in that home forever.
But it's exciting.
Yeah, and the more you educate and help them understand the process and and how construction, pier and grade beam footings and brick mold and movement and settlement piers and clay soil and HVAC systems. And I mean, it's fun. I like working with first-time buyers and educating them. So, yeah, good questions you've got there. Credit score. Sure, that's a big one.
Yes.
There's a direct correlation between lower credit scores and people making even claims on their insurance. Probably knew that. I mean, today you go in to get a homeowner's insurance policy when you buy a home. The higher your credit score is, the cheaper your insurance is. They have found a direct correlation with low credit scores and people trying to file false claims. So you want your credit score to be as good as possible. With most lenders, it's a 640 for, say, an FHA. Maybe with a credit score even down around 570, 580, Dave. But got to have some residual money in the bank, because if your credit score is low, it looks like you might not be the best money manager.
Sure.
But let's say that you inherited some money and you've got $20,000 or $30,000 in the bank. The lender is willing to look and say, if they get in trouble on payments, at least they've got some money in the bank to get it current or for us to tap into if we have to. I think first and foremost is find somebody who will take the time to help you understand the process. First-time buyers are going to have 100 or 200 or 300 questions, and whoever they work with needs to be patient and help them understand that. Because there are so many loan programs for first-time buyers. The Oklahoma Housing Finance Agency, which we call OHFA, has these bond money programs all the time. You probably pay just a little bit higher on the rate.
Okay.
So let's just say today that rates were 6. You might pay 6 1/4, maybe 6 3/8, but the bond authority will grant down payment assistance for a buyer. And if the buyer has their down payment, it can be used for closing costs. That down payment assistance or closing cost assistance is typically about 3.5%. There's some guidelines. You can't make $250,000 a year in annual income and qualify for these programs. And you do need to be a first-time buyer. There's some low down payment programs available. So understanding all of those, we have a lot of Native Americans in Oklahoma, right?
Yes.
Got that beautiful museum. Have you been in that museum, by the way, up here at I-35 and I-40?
I'm ashamed to say I have not.
I'm part Indian myself. I'm like a 16th Navajo.
I'm Osage.
You're Osage?
Yes.
Well, see, just the two of us, and we've never talked about that.
So we're going. We're going today.
We need to go. Indian Heritage allows those with a Native American card to buy with a 2.25% down payment, and then in a lot of cases they don't pay that PMI that we talked about on our show last week.
Okay.
And that just adds more money to the payment. Okay. I think one of the biggest questions I hear is, when do I have to have all this money? I mean, Wally, I hear I need 3.5%. Is that like tomorrow? Is it next week?
That could be daunting.
When do I need this money? Which the truth is, most of it you don't need until closing.
Okay.
There's another question is, when's this closing date? And who decides this? And how long is this going to take for the loan? Because my lease is up in 30 days. Can I buy a home in 30 days and get in? And that's a scrap. It can be done. But to get the inspections done and the appraisal done
Sure.
and the financing done, that's a lot to get done in 30 days. What are closing costs? Do I qualify for a lower down payment? What's this mortgage insurance deal that we're talking about? I don't want it, and I don't want to pay it, so do I have to have it? Okay. What's the difference between getting pre-qualified and getting pre-approved? Dave, you and I know how busy the market's been the last 2 or 3 years. People walking around with a pre-qualification letter, they lose out on homes. They need a pre-approval letter, which says, we've verified this stuff. The lenders checked the money in the bank. They've checked the employment verifications, what we call a VOE, verification of employment. They've done a VOD, verification of deposit. So, boy, if you're walking around and want to make an offer on a home, and there's more than one offer on it, more than yours, if you don't have a good, solid pre-approval letter from a pretty local, reputable lender that the realtor community likes, you're probably going to lose out.
So I get it, because it's like, I am approved. I am green lit and I am ready to go. That's my pre-approval. Why would I even bother with, or what does a pre-qualification stand for? Is it just kind of like a brief
It's not
look?
as good.
Like, what is it really?
Yeah, really what it is you call the lender and say, I make this much and this is how much my debts are. How much do I pre-qualify for? And the lender has no verification whatsoever. So a pre-qual letter
Okay.
is just I gave the lender the information. Pre-approval means the lender checked the information and has verified it and can tell me that I'm pre-approved. For
Okay,
this
so
amount.
I don't need to really go for a pre-qualification. I should just go straight pre-approval because that means a whole lot more. It's going to look a lot better when I'm looking at that house and I can show, hey, yeah, I can buy this house.
You know, if you were 6 months down the road and you just said, hey, I'd like to get an idea of what I might qualify for,
Okay.
that's where the pre-qual comes in.
Okay.
You can do it over the phone, and if you will give honest and accurate information to a lender over the telephone with what your income is and what your debts are, they would be able to give you a pre-qualification, typically over the phone.
Okay.
And you just go, okay, now I'm not going to buy for 6 months, but I kind of know where I should be
That's
looking.
for me. The pre-qualification is for me so that I know what the numbers are that I can look at. Pre-approval is for you. I'm
for the
showing up
seller.
and saying, I'm pre-approved to buy this house from you.
For the seller, for
Here's
the
all
realtors
this-
in the transaction.
I got
Right.
it now. So
Okay.
it is important. I just made it, but you're right. It's good for me to start looking around going, yes, I can afford that $1.5 million, or no, I can't.
I think you actually explained it better than I did. I think you did. You know, what's a warranty plan? Do they really cover anything? I've heard that my friends bought a warranty and it didn't cover this repair. So what are the good warranties and what are the ones that are not good warranties? And will the seller pay that or do I have to pay it? You know, escrow account. What in the world is that and what goes in there and do I have to have one? Things like earnest money. This is a big one, Dave, is people say now, if I make an offer, but I don't like what I see and we do inspections, do I just lose my earnest money? And the answer to that is no. There are 4 contingencies in the Oklahoma purchase contract that say if it doesn't appraise for the purchase price, Mr. Buyer, if you can't come to an agreement with the seller, you get your earnest money back. If you do your inspections and there are issues you know about and that you don't like, you can back out and take your earnest money back. If the seller can't give a good title to the home, what is that? Well, that's
Sure.
like things like probate and foreclosures and bankruptcies and divorces.
Yes, it's like buying a car and you find out that it was in a flood. It's like,
A
oh,
salvage
it's a salvage title. There
right.
you go.
Right.
Okay.
You know, in real estate, we
Okay.
call it a clouded title or a title defect.
Okay.
Some of those can be fixed easily, and some can't. So a buyer has the right to back out if there are title problems, and then if it doesn't appraise for or if they don't get their loan. Now that's the big question, Dave. Is someone says, if I don't qualify, I went to my lender, and they said I'm pre-approved, and so I think I'm good. But what if I make this offer and then they don't give me the loan approval? Am I going to lose this earnest money? And you and I know the answer to that is no. The contract's very clear. It's contingent upon qualifying.
Okay.
Some other things I think buyers would like to know about is what inspections can I do? What if I ask the seller to do repairs and then they just won't fix it? What do I do from there? Negotiating. Are you paying too much for a home? Well, the appraisal will normally protect that, but not in every case, especially if you're paying cash. Okay. How long in advance do I shop? In other words, my lease is up. Get a lot of those calls, Dave. My lease is up in 6 months. When do you think I should start shopping, Wally? And I think the answer is probably don't start right now because anything for sale now is not going to be available.
2 to 3 months?
Probably 2 to 3 months in advance is a good
Okay.
timetable. Give you a chance to really hunt down and see what's available in the market, begin to understand the market, hunt for 2 or 3 weeks, and then be able to put an offer in on a home and allow about 45 days for closing. 35 to 45 days. Don't cut it too much shorter than that. You don't want to make an offer 2 or 3 months in advance because you can't lock an interest rate. We talked about that in one of our
Yes.
past shows. Okay. And then how long does the closing take? When do you get to move in? Well, you get to move in the day that you close. In California, where my wife Cindy is from, you closed and you didn't get possession of the home for 3 days while it funded. That's a kind of a surprise for a lot of people. States are different as far as when they fund and when possession occurs. Here, you go sign, lay your money on the table. Seller gives you the keys and garage door
You're
openers.
off and
You
running.
go get in the moving truck and go over and don't call Wally to
Is
help.
that for
to help.
California? Is that just a safeguard for them, that industry, to make sure that
It's a funding thing
Okay.
with the way the money transfers.
Okay.
So, and I was joking when I said don't call Wally. I used to help my buddies move in college, and I'm past the moving days.
Well, okay, so I want people to give you a text or a call here because it's an involved list and there's a lot of good questions. And the answer isn't going to be the same. The answer might be different depending on their situation. So, again, first-time home buyers that are listening might have a question for you. This is a real easy. They can text you at 330-3000, call you at 330-3000 if they just basically want some advice. They just want to chat with you. I was listening to the show. I had a couple of questions. Would you be able to answer these? That's all I want is just to chat with you for a minute, and we can do that.
Absolutely no obligation at all, Dave. I'd love to work with them, but if they just need some advice or have questions, maybe they're in a deal right now they've got questions on, give me a call.
Now, Wally, I find this very interesting. I want to talk about foreclosures and especially sheriff sales properties and what I should know about them if I'm looking at a home that's been foreclosed. And are there people that are interested in specifically seeking out foreclosure homes and the sheriff sale properties?
Sure. A lot of investors are looking for things they can buy today that are under market value to protect the value of their money. Inflation has eroded the value of the dollar, right?
Yes.
If you were making $1 last year, now you're making 93 cents on the same dollar. I mean, 7% inflation.
Yes.
I guess I should say that dollar is now worth about 93 cents. So lots of people looking for foreclosures and sheriff sale properties. Let's do a quick run on this. So we're a Zillow partner. We were fortunate enough to have Zillow approach us a year and a half ago. Said, we like your team and the service that you provide. We'd like you to join the Zillow network.
Cool.
I'm proud to say we've been a Zillow partner for a year and a half. There's a lot of homes on Zillow that you'll look around on that say pre-foreclosure. I get a lot of calls on those now. First thing I'll tell you is there are far fewer foreclosures available for sale today.
Okay.
Do you know why?
Is that a good thing?
It's a great thing. It's because values have gone up so much.
Okay, good.
So let's say, Dave, that you got in some financial trouble. It was job loss.
Yes.
And you lost your job and you just felt like you were going to get a great job and you're looking and I just can't get a job here locally. It looks like I'm going to have to move to Dallas. So now you need to sell the home. You haven't made 8 payments. But values have gone up 25 to 30 to 35% over the last 3 years. So even those that have gotten behind on payments, don't let your home be foreclosed on. You can probably sell it and make more than you would ever have thought you could, even making up the back payments. So here's what I see. People call and say, well, I see this on Zillow and it says pre-foreclosure. How do I buy this home?
Okay.
How do I buy this home? So what Zillow's done is they've identified public tax records at the courthouse where the homeowner's been notified by the lender that, hey, you're being sued. You haven't made your payments for several months, and now you're being sued. When people are being chased by debt collectors, they typically don't answer the door or answer the phone. And the lender can't sell that home until they own it. When you see pre-foreclosure, that doesn't mean you can buy that home.
Okay.
Okay. It's different from a sheriff sale property. So a sheriff sale property it's gone through foreclosure. The lender has sent it to sheriff sale. It's gone all the way through the foreclosure process, and the last step is for the sheriff to auction it off on the courthouse steps. So what we just talked about, most people are still living in those homes. Many people just stay in their home until they're forced to move, and perhaps with an eviction. So it goes to sheriff sale, and perhaps it sells to the highest bidder. The people are still living inside the home. I mean, how are you going to get in and look at that home and see what the condition is? How are you going to be able to see the age of the heat and air and the appliances and the countertop and what's the flooring look like? Is there damage? And so literally when someone goes to the courthouse, Dave, and buys a property at sheriff sale off the steps of the courthouse, you're buying sight unseen. And that's pretty risky, don't you think?
That has to be investors or groups that know that they're going to get a good deal on it and probably want to flip it. It's not someone who's ready to move and just looking for a home, because that would just be, there's so many unknowns. I would think it'd be an investor or somebody that wants to go in and just clean it up and sell it for a profit.
You're right. And it is mostly investors, because the day of the sale, let's say that a property sells at sheriff's sale for $200,000. Dave, before the end of that day, you have to walk in with a $20,000 check, 10% of the purchase price, and post it with the sheriff. And there can't be any financing contingencies.
You just
So
write
it
that
can't be
check.
subject to an appraisal.
Okay.
It can't be, hey, I may not be able to get my financing. This has got to be a cash buyer. So sheriff sales really only appeal to or really work for a very, very limited segment of the market.
Okay.
But we get asked about them a lot because who doesn't want a good deal, right? And that's what you said. Should I be looking for a foreclosure because it's a good deal? Should I be considering a sheriff sale property even though it's a really big risk for me to go buy that because I probably can't even see it inside before I make the purchase?
So I would think that not seeing plumbing, the roof completely inspected or anything like that, me, Dave McKay, I'm probably going to avoid that. That's just got to be something that's just going to be investors.
Somebody's living there and they're not answering the door. You sure can't go put a ladder up against it and crawl up on top of the roof and start taking a look at the shingles, right? It's just not authorized. So when you can't look at the water heater, the appliances, the HVAC system, the electrical, the plumbing, the roof systems, and even get a good look as to whether there might be some structural issues, you're right. Most investors are buying at sheriff sale, and they are buying at significantly under market value, but they're doing it with cash money.
Okay, and if someone is maybe just starting to want to invest in properties, I would think lob you a phone call or a text. You're going to have a little bit more information than they would probably about that property and say, Wally, this is what I'm intending to do. I want to buy this home to kind of fix up so I can flip it or make a little profit off of it, or I want to turn it into a rental home. What would your suggestion be? And you might be able to offer them a little bit of advice.
Absolutely. We're going to start later this month in April. I'm going to finish here with you. We do our show from 7 to 8. So Saturday mornings at 10 o'clock, once a month, I'm going to do an investors webinar.
Oh, okay.
Where you can sign up front, and I will help our listeners and anybody who wants to be an investor in real estate with both residential and commercial real estate understand investing in real estate and rates of returns and how financing can actually be a write-off and increase your rate of return. So just simply put, long-term, real estate's a really good long-term investment. You and I know that.
Yes.
Prices continue, even though there will be peaks and valleys in the market. Real estate is a good long-term investment. Over time, home values appreciate, and you've got your tenants making the payments, and then there are tax benefits, the depreciation that can be written off. So this investors webinar will focus on financing that's available, identifying specific homes and specific properties that I look at, along with you, the listener, that look like the best available investments each week. We'll explore the financing, single family, multifamily, duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes, and even commercial properties, because I work with all of these. We'll talk about the tax benefits and perhaps allow some of our listeners to get rich in real estate through investing. Cindy and I have been fortunate enough to find some great investments over the years and have $2 or $3 million in real estate now that's paid for because of the investments that we've made. And we've learned, of course, over 30 years of doing this, the ins, the outs, the advantages, and we'd like to share that with our listeners. So this will be brand new.
Okay.
We'll start this later this month.
That's a question I have for you, me personally, because our son is in college right now and might be doing some grad school work down in Norman in the near future. And we kind of thought, well, what if we were to buy a small home down there versus helping him rent, or he can help pay for it as well, and just buy a small home. So if he's in that home for just a couple of years, after that we can decide, well, now we just want to rent it out, make some money off of that, or hopefully it's appreciated a little bit and we can sell it, make money off of that.
Talking about your son, we helped a friend buy a home just 4 or 5 years ago in Norman for their daughter who was attending OU. She's now finished her master's and moving on to her PhD work in Colorado. Dave, they bought that home either 3 or 4 years ago for $170,000.
Okay.
And we have it on the market right now for $245,000, and it's priced right. They've seen great appreciation. It's been a good investment property for them. They own it, and
fantastic.
Their daughter lives there. You got to find the right deal. It's not like you could just go buy anything. So we'll analyze when we start this investment course, what are we looking for? How do we identify that? And what are the type of rates of return that you should expect being an investor? We've diversified our portfolio. We have investments, we keep cash, and we have our real estate. And so it's made for what will one day be a comfortable retirement for us And if I can help others do the same thing that we've been able to do together, I'd love to help. We love helping people and serving people, and that's the great satisfaction that I get out of being in real estate now 36 years, is helping other people attain their financial goals, the goal of home ownership, the goal to get their family where they need them to be, to move mom in when dad passes and vice versa. So that's our goal here on our show, and is always to help people with what their needs are. And that's why I'm here on the show every Saturday morning with you.
Well, great. I know you said the investment webinar is going to be coming up soon, so I will go ahead and ask you next week when we get into the show as well, maybe a little bit more info on that as we get closer to that date.
Great. We'll announce that date next week and start working on registrations, but we're looking at probably the last Saturday of this month, no later than the first Saturday in May. So mark that on your calendars, and if you'd like to join us for about a 1-hour webinar, or join me for a 1-hour webinar on investing, I'd love to have you as my guest.
This is House Talk with Wally Kerr. Airs every Saturday morning right here on KOKC at 7 a.m. If you're thinking of making a move, or if you're now interested in investment properties, how about calling Wally or texting Wally? Of course, the area code always 405, but it's 330-3000, 330-3000 with the words, I want to sell, or just visit wallyhasthebuyers.com. Get an estimated value for your home. It's real easy. You just text your address, again, to 330-3000. Include the condition of your home on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the best, and then maybe within half a day or just a day, Wally will get back to you. No phone call if you don't want that phone call. If you want a phone call, Wally is a joy to talk to, and would be glad to have a 10-minute chat with you if you want.
Absolutely, but we certainly respect those who would prefer to text.
Yes.
Absolutely, and that won't be violated. So we'll always start with the text, and then at some point, if you'd like to say, can we chat or can we talk? I may hit you back with the same question. Would you like to chat by phone, or would you prefer to chat by text? And that will be 100% respected. So a lot of people buying new homes right now, if you don't know exactly when that home's going to be done, but you know exactly when the builder's going to want you to close, and that is when it's done, when it is done.
Absolutely.
You may have a home to sell, and you might be working on that timing in your mind. A little bit worried about what happens if maybe the interest rates could go up again this year, right?
Yes.
Could happen.
Sure.
Based on what you and I have seen, each week and each month, they're analyzing what's going to happen with rates. So what if the builder gets your new home done, and it just happens to be that 1 month where the Fed decides to raise its rate again and the interest rates go up?
Ooh.
And you might think, how does that affect me selling my home?
Yes.
What happens if the new home is done in September and school starts in September and the state fair is in September and the kids are back in school and nobody really wants to move the kids as much when they've just started school?
That's right.
So we've offered, as you know, a guaranteed sale program that just says in the unlikely event that we place someone's home for sale, like yours, and it doesn't sell in an agreed period, we'll step in and buy that home for cash.
Yes.
That's going to help a lot of people that are building a home or to have a home that's under construction right now, or especially when they don't know the exact closing date's going to be. I can take, Cindy and I and my team can take the stress off of you for worrying about having 2 house payments at the same time.
That's a big stress.
What if the market slows?
Yes.
We've certainly seen those times. October, November, December, January, it got pretty slow. So if you're considering building, you may be buying a home that has just started. It may be under construction, or you may be building a custom home. And when there's a custom home, Dave, and people are doing custom features that don't really fit inside the builder's normal plan of A to B to C to D to E.
Yes.
Maybe somebody makes a very custom selection on the flooring inside the home. Suddenly you order the flooring and the supply house says, well, we had enough to do half the house. And that's not so great.
I've heard those stories before.
Yes. So it could delay the project, and you just don't know when the new home's going to be done. What if you put your home on the market too soon, and then you find yourself living in a cramped apartment because you didn't have a place to live with your pets or your kids or a lot of your possessions? And so, again, this is where the Guaranteed Home Sale Program can help a lot of people.
Let's just talk about just the next house I want to buy, just in a subdivision or whatever. How do I know, or what's a good gauge of the percentage of my income that I can allocate towards a new home?
This was one of your topics, and I thought it was so pertinent because that's what most people ask us, Dave, is how much down and how much a month? Now, one of the misconceptions, do you have to have 20% down to buy a home?
No.
No, absolutely not. So most people will go either conventional loan with as little as 5% down,
Yes.
an FHA loan with 3.5% down. Let's talk about the Native American loan. A lot of Native Americans here in Oklahoma.
Yes.
So 2.25% down on the
Okay.
FHA Native American program.
Okay.
And then veterans can buy with no money down whatsoever. That's our thank you from the government for them serving our country, the sacrifices they've made, for being away from their families.
Sure.
No matter where they served, reservists have entitlement and the ability to use the VA bill.
Yes.
So let's answer your question. Most homeowners probably have an idea about how much they want it to be each month, but they might not know how much they can afford. So that's always my question is, number one, how much do you want to pay a month? And then number two is, how much can you actually afford per month? It's amazing how many people can afford far more for their payment than what they actually want to pay. I talk to people who say, I don't want my payment to be more than $1,800 a month, and they could qualify for $3,500 or $4,000 a month. A lot of it depends on how much debt you have. So this will lead into answering your question. Mortgage lenders identify this is how much your house payment can be, and this is how much your debts can be.
Okay.
So let's go through a couple of quick examples. FHA and VA loans are underwritten by our government, by the U.S. government. These programs date back to 1934, and they help homeowners, people that want to become homeowners, with either zero down payments or low down payments, depending on whether it's FHA or VA. Again, zero down for a veteran, keeps the closing costs as low as possible, and it's easier to credit qualify.
Okay.
The better your credit is, the better the rate you're
Sure.
going to get. So that leads into the question of what percentage of my income can my house payment be? So let's start with the FHA. Dave, I'd say just a great majority of people, especially first-time buyers, go with FHA financing, but there's also a misconception that FHA loans are only for first-time buyers, and that's not true at all.
Okay. That's what I thought.
The FHA loan maximum now in Oklahoma has gotten really near $400,000. Do you know you could take 7 FHA loans during your lifetime? There's no restriction whatsoever.
I did not know that.
If you're a citizen and you're in the U.S., that is our government's goal, is to make you a homeowner no matter what price range you're at, so long as it falls within the maximum for the state. And
Okay.
again, the maximum loan is, I believe it's, and I should know this, but it's around $390,000, $400,000 for an FHA loan. So on an FHA, here's how it works. Write down, if you're listening to the program today, 31, and then write down 43. So let's make it super simple.
Okay.
Let's say you're making $10,000 a month.
Okay.
Gross monthly income, no expenses taken out, nothing taken out for taxes. These numbers are adjusted based on gross. I'm only going to choose $10,000 a month just for the sake of simplicity, just so that we can work our numbers today.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're making $10,000 a month, your housing ratio, just your payment for your house, should not exceed 31% of your gross monthly income.
Okay.
You can do that math pretty easy.
Yes.
So $10,000 a month in income, the house payment's not to be supposed to be more than 31%.
Yes.
It's $3,100 a month, right?
Sure.
My house payment and my debts together. Let's say I got a couple credit cards. I've got a nice truck. Okay, my payment's $550, let's say. A couple credit cards. Maybe I've got a little bit of student loan. Okay. Back in my past. My total debts and my house payment together should not exceed 43% of my gross monthly income without any expenses out. So what's that example? $10,000 a month in income. I've got to be able to prove that. Okay, that can't just be my word. I've got to prove that to the lender. On commission sales, commission can be tough to qualify on because you might have a really good month and a really slow month. So commissions you have to watch. Mm-hmm. If you're self-employed, that's a different bag, but let's keep it simple. 43% for my debts and my house payment each month. 43% of $10,000 is $4,300.
$4,300, yeah.
So that's FHA. Now, if you got a blazing hot credit score and not much debt, those ratios can go up.
Okay.
I've seen that 43 become 50% if you've got low debt and really good income. Okay, so if you're a really good money manager and your credit score reflects that, that top ratio, it's 31 and 43, and they'll allow that 31 to even go up to 32, 33, 34.
Okay.
They'll allow that top end, that 43% ratio, to approach, say, closer to 50% if you've got good credit and income.
Huh, okay.
Now, conventional loans are different because they're not government. So let's stick with government loans for a minute.
Okay.
For a veteran, here's what's funny, Dave. There's only one ratio. There's not a housing ratio and a debt ratio. It's just debt.
Okay.
And it's 41% on a VA. Let's go back to that same $10,000 a month in income. 41% of $10,000 is $4,100 a month.
Yes.
As long as your debts and your house payment don't exceed $4,100 a month, you qualify. As long as your credit score is good enough.
Okay.
Only one ratio for veterans, and it's just the debt ratio. For FHA, it's house debt ratio and total debt ratio. Same thing, if you've got a really good credit score, you're probably going to be able to exceed that number a bit, but let's just go with what the guidelines are going to be, okay?
Okay.
Conventional loans are different, Dave. They're a little bit more restrictive because they're not underwritten by the federal government like FHA and VA loans are.
Okay.
So those ratios are going to be a bit lower. That's why a lot of people will go to, remember we talked about why do FHA and VA loans exist? Because they're easier on credit qualifying with lower closing costs and a lower down payment.
Yes.
Conventional loans are the remainder of what the market is for the most part.
Sure.
So those ratios, if you want to write these down, if you're listening, they're 28 and 36.
Okay.
So you know what the 28 and 36 are, right?
Sure. 28 is the percentage of what I can qualify for my house payment, and the total debt is the 36.
Bingo. That's it.
Okay.
So use the same numbers. So let's go back to that $10,000 a month in income again.
Okay.
Let's say now you're going to go buy a $700,000 home. Okay. You're not going to be able to get an FHA loan for a $700,000 home if the FHA maximum loan amount is $400,000.
Yes.
We're a little shy, right?
Yes. A little.
But you could have a $300,000 down payment.
Okay, yeah.
And you could still go on an FHA loan, but the disadvantage on an FHA loan is no matter how much you put down, you're still going to pay this ugly little beast that we talked about a few weeks ago called mortgage insurance.
Oh, there it is.
Even with $300,000 down.
It rears its ugly head.
It does. It does.
So why is that? If you're putting down what is that? 45% or something like that.
It's a guideline. It's
Okay.
a guideline. And it's actually to put money into the till for the FHA
Okay.
to make sure that there's money there to take care of home foreclosures the day that those come around.
And you know what? I could see that because the top end being $400,000, and they're saying how much of that $400,000 are you putting in? Well, you're not putting in any because it was a $700,000 home. Sure, I had $300,000. I had a great job, but of that $400,000, how much did I put down? I put down zero. So I could see, yeah, you got to pay mortgage insurance on
Right. And some people do this, and I'll tell you why. Maybe their credit score isn't quite good enough, and so they don't qualify for a conventional loan. Or maybe their debt ratios are a little bit high.
Sure.
They can't quite afford what they want, so they go to the FHA and put a large amount of money down, but you can go refinance out of that at some point if you want to and just pay the loan off. So on a conventional, it's 28% of your gross monthly income, and that's for house payment alone, Dave. And then for house payment and debts, 36%. So in our example of making $10,000 a month in gross monthly income, I want to emphasize that's nothing taken out. No taxes,
Sure.
no utilities, no groceries, nothing, okay? So if it was 36% on the what we call the back end ratio, the 28's the front end.
Yes.
That's what your house payment can be.
Yes.
The back end ratio is 36. If you're making $10,000 a month in gross monthly income, that would mean your house payment and debts could be about $3,600 a month.
Okay.
And again, give or take, Dave, if they've got a really smoking good credit score, you're going to be able to get the lender to push those numbers up some for you.
Okay, so I could see just as a ballpark, knowing that it's going to be a little bit different with some of these different types of loans, if I just really spit out there and say 30%. 30% of what I'm bringing home, I could put towards a house. and I know that I might be in the ballpark probably with which one of these programs I'm going to go with.
Yeah, if you went 30% for house payment and 40% for house payment and debts,
Yeah.
you're really close on the numbers. And you know what? That's easier to remember long after our show today.
Sure.
Remember, 30%, 0.3, and 40%, 0.4.
Yes.
And the 30% is for house payment, and the 40% is house payment and debts. Hopefully that will help our listeners.
We've been talking about buying in the country and what percentage of our income goes towards buying a house. Okay, we're all interested in buying a home, but on the other side, I have a house that I live in that I need to sell. And we know one of the easiest ways to get an estimate is what? What can they do to get an estimate on their home that someone is currently in now?
Text your address to 330-3000 and then let me know the condition, scale of 1 to 10, 10 being best. Tell me if there's any upgrades. You may say your home is a 6. You may say, it's pretty perfect, but there's a few things that need to be done. Maybe that's a 9. Boy, if you just finished a remodel, it's probably a 10 or maybe a 12.
Fantastic.
Right? So
Yes.
text your address. You'll get no phone call, just a text, and I'll give you an estimated value for your home in a pretty tight range, and maybe that will help out.
It's exciting to know kind of what the value of your home is, because then you know what the value of the home that you're looking for is. So that's pretty exciting.
It's nice to know how much you're going to have to spend on your next home and how much down payment you'll have and for
Yes.
closing costs. It'd be nice to put 20% down, right?
Yes.
To avoid mortgage insurance. I would say, Dave, that most people that have owned their home, let's say 18 months or longer in the Oklahoma City metro area, let's
Okay.
say that's stretching out 20 to even 30 miles out, maybe a little farther. I think you're going to be pretty surprised as to how much your home value has increased over the last 2 to 3 years.
Wow. Okay, so we've talked about the number of homes that people are trying to sell on the market. We've talked about quite a few new homes coming onto the market with a lot of builders, but we haven't really talked about older homes, which this is kind of neat. So I love the grand staircases, the balconies, the wraparound porches, all of those probably not combined into one home, but I know there's probably all different kind of styles. But I know there's places here in Oklahoma City that have older homes that just look majestic and look beautiful. So what are some things to think about when, number one, just buying an older home? Do you go about that a little differently in the purchasing process? And two, maybe after you buy it, what is there to think about what goes into it in buying an older home?
Great. So, boy, the charm and character really makes the difference,
Yes.
doesn't it? They just
Yes. Beautiful.
What's the trite saying? They just don't make them like they used to.
Mm-hmm.
So there's your older homes and a lot of the class and charm that come across with those. So there are a lot of things to think about, and so let's just run through some of those things really quickly.
Great.
First of all, things like sewer lines. Well, that stuff gets buried underground and you just can't see it.
Yes.
So sometimes sewer lines will belly out. In other words, they'll kind of sink into the ground and you get kind of this belly to where the sewage, maybe it gets blocked with tree limbs. Maybe it just collects over the years because that sewer line is bellied. There's this old stuff called Orangeburg pipe, which was kind of a fiber pipe.
Okay. I think I know this. I think I've seen this.
Yeah, I remember when my dad dug up our Orangeburg pipe in our front yard when I was a kid, and I watched him, and I don't remember him pulling it out of the ground. I remember he went back with PVC or cast iron at that
Okay.
time. But all I know about Orangeburg is that it delaminates. And you'd be surprised, there are still some homes in Oklahoma City that still have some Orangeburg pipe.
Oh, wow.
So if I'm a buyer and I'm going to buy an older home, I'm going to definitely get the sewer line scoped with a camera, and plumbers have that available where you can see what's going on with the
Sure.
sewer line.
Yes.
Electrical systems. Has the box been replaced? Is it adequate to handle today's power needs? Is there any aluminum wiring inside the wall that can literally almost overheat and melt? So that could be a little bit
fire
dangerous.
hazard, yes.
Fire hazard.
Okay.
Mhm. What about the old knob and tube stuff? You've probably seen that before, the little white insulator
Oh, yes.
with the wire that runs through the middle of it.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
That knob and tube just wasn't designed to carry the loads of today's appliances.
That's right. We all have the computers and everything streaming and everything now. So a lot more electrical needs in the home.
Especially the bigger appliances like microwaves and more powerful microwaves,
Yes.
and maybe washer dryers and refrigerators and freezers. Okay.
Yep.
Plumbing, again, sewer lines and doing those inspections. And what about slow drains? What about water pressure? When you walk up and you're looking at an older home, maybe turn the faucet on and see what that water pressure looks like, both on the hot side and the cold side. Flush the commode and see how fast the water goes down. Put some water in the bathtub and then pull the drain and see how quickly it drains out. Because those can be expensive items when you start digging into walls
And
and
it's stuff you can't
ceilings
see.
and floors. Yeah, absolutely. Insulation. Older homes just weren't insulated like they are today. It's going to make a difference on utilities and what you pay for your bills. And so I would be looking for information on, I can blow some insulation into the ceiling, but what about in the walls? And I really
What
can't
do you do for the walls?
That's a tough one. I have actually had contractors before that would just cut a hole and take a look, but then you have to go repair the wall. You really can't see behind the wall board.
Sure.
So it's something you want to ask about. You're kind of more worried about the heat rising up and what's in the
Keep
attic.
it, you're right. Create that dome to
Right.
warm you during the winters. Yes.
But do we have strong winds in Oklahoma?
Absolutely.
Do we have strong winds in the wintertime?
Yes.
What's that caulking like around the windows? How
That's
are those
exactly what I was
seals on
going to
those
say.
older
What
windows?
the windows themselves?
Oh, wow. Window costs are up so much.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to talk about that a little bit later with our home inspector today about the cost of glass and windows. But windows is a big one because they've really increased in price. What about foundation concerns? A lot of older homes maybe have basements.
Yes.
And you get down inside and you're looking for cracks, you're looking for movement on the walls. Have they put buttresses in, which are these large concrete structures that they pour to hold the walls in place?
Mm-hmm.
So in older homes, definitely want to look at what the foundation is like. Even newer homes, too. A little known thing for a lot of people is what a historical district is or what a historic preservation district is. So I sold one up in Putnam Heights a number of years back, just off of Classen,
Okay.
around 43rd or 44th Street, I think. And you couldn't change the outside of that home and the way it looked.
You're right. If it's in you just said
A
historical.
preservation district?
You're right. Right. It's
Or a special design district is what it could be.
Absolutely. So basically, what people are looking at historical homes, you want to maintain that historical look, and you can't go in and start saying, "Well, now I'm going to tear this off and put this up and start painting this or that." So I guess that would be part of the covenants of the neighborhood
That's
and everything.
right. Yeah, it
There's
is.
a lot of
It's-
stuff in there. And
It's design restrictions where if there's one type of material that's used, you can't necessarily just go off and take that material off. Say it's siding and you want to change it to stucco or ephes, and you may not be able to do that. And so when you're looking at an older home, I would ask if it's in a historical district or a historic preservation district so that you know that the cost of the materials and the labor for getting those improvements done might cost you a pretty penny. Definitely something to look at.
wow. Okay.
Asbestos siding. Here's one I've gotten asked about a lot, Dave, over the years. So
Is there a lot of that still around? I guess.
I'd have to quantify a lot, but I'd say there's a significant
Well, in
amount.
historical homes, it's going to be. Has it been updated since the 70s? If it hasn't, it's probably going to have asbestos.
Maybe even since the 40s or 50s. Here's the
Okay.
big one.
Okay.
I can walk up to a home. It kind of looks like a solid material, almost like a concrete board or a hardy board, which is what builders use today
Okay.
because it's so durable. But on the asbestos, what you see the most on homes that are older is it's gotten chipped over time, and maybe a piece of it's fallen off. And you think, I really want to replace that so it looks pretty. You have to be really careful with asbestos siding. It's best that it's left alone. The damaged siding, it's got to be carefully repaired so that you don't get into disturbing that asbestos shingle and
Yes.
kind of unloading the asbestos airborne. So I'd say let's keep it simple. Consult a professional on that one. Check online, do your research before you start messing with asbestos siding on your own. And then I think here's the big one. A lot of older homes, a sleeping porch would be on the upper level
Okay.
and typically have windows or screens on either 2 or 3 sides. So that during the summertime, you went upstairs, you opened the windows, there was no air conditioning, and it allowed the
Yes.
breeze to come through.
I like it.
Sleeping porches a lot
Okay,
of
I like
times had windows on the north and the south,
Okay.
but might also have one on the east or west. Well, why'd they put those in? There was no central heat and air, right?
Mm-hmm.
I remember my father installed central heat and air on their home here in Oklahoma City, either in the very late 60s or early 70s. And I remember when they put in that big unit on the back of the house. Well, 2-story homes that are older, if they have central heat and air and it's only downstairs, or maybe there's vents upstairs, but there's only one unit.
Sure.
You and I know it's going to be hotter upstairs because hot air rises.
Yes.
And the question is, there may not be ample closet space to go put a unit in that's going to provide heat and air for a second story. You need closet space. You got to be able to run the ductwork upstairs and get it into the ceiling. So when you're looking at older homes, if it's a 2-story home and only has one heat and air unit, realize that there's going to be a big difference between the upstairs and downstairs temperature.
So it basically sounds like if I like older homes, I need to go find the home that's ready, it's done, the inspection, everything panned out, and maybe it's been updated or they've fixed what needed to be done in the last 5 to 10 years, and pay that premium to be in a historic home. Or I need to know that I need to have some money set aside, that there could be a lot more work to be done probably moving into an older home.
Yeah, bingo. And why don't we do this, Dave, on older homes? Just budget to spend a little bit more on your inspections.
Okay.
Get a good plumbing inspection done. Have somebody come out and scope that sewer line that's out in the yard because it's older. Have an electrician come out and check the electrical. Maybe have a structural engineer. That's $300 or $400, maybe $500, to have a structural engineer come out and look at the basement and make sure the foundation looks really good. So I think you spend a little bit more money. I think you do your diligence. And like you said, I think you probably just budget a little bit more. If I could only qualify for a $2,300 a month payment, or maybe it's a home that's $375,000, if that's all I qualify for, I'm probably less likely to go spend everything that I qualify for, pull back a bit on the price, not be so strapped on the payment, and keep some extra money in savings as a safety net, right?
Yes.
Because older homes are wonderful. They're beautiful. They have a lot of character. Some of the areas are so beautiful. But you just kind of need to remember my friend Elise's advice. When you own an older home, you own it, but you're a bit of a caretaker. Dave, I've done this for 36 years. I've got the knowledge and expertise to help our listeners and guide them in the right decision. If you're considering an older home or any home, I'd love to hear from you. You can call me anytime at 330-3000. Just because we talk doesn't mean that you have to use me. I'm glad to be a consultant, but ultimately, I am in real estate, and I'd love, whether you're selling or buying, to be your realtor of choice.
And of course, if they're looking to buy a home, they're in a home now, possibly they're looking to sell, text the same number, 330-3000. Text
Right.
your address. And again, on a scale of 1 to 10, if it's in pretty good shape, you've done some improvements to it, and it's maybe an 8. So I'm just texting you my address and that the home is an 8 to 330-3000. I'm going to get a pretty good deal what my home is worth.
And here's what I think our listeners like. They're going to get a text, but they're not going to get a phone call.
Yes.
We really respect that. And every weekend when our shows run, I'm getting quite a few addresses that are texted in. I may get it late in the day and not get it to you till the next day, but I will send you a pretty accurate estimate of what it looks like your home is worth based on the sales data available in the MLS. And I'll work really hard on that. I'll shoot you a text. You have no obligation to respond back, but glad to chit-chat with you by text if you like.
Well, today's Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show with Wally Kerr has been sponsored by Oklahoma Home Inspection Service. To learn more about a pre-inspection for your home, call Todd Stewart at 405-366-8889. And Chris Doak at Gateway Mortgage. For friendly service and the best possible rate for your home loan, call Chris at 405-253-2276. This show airs every Saturday morning at 7 a.m., and you can hear a replay of the same show Saturdays at noon right here on KOKC. And if you're thinking of making a move, you can call Wally at 405-330-3000. Visit wallyhasthebuyers.com or simply get an estimated value for your home by texting your address to 330-3000. You'll get no phone call, just a text. You can hear replays of this show on Wally's YouTube channel or on all the podcast platforms, including Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, iHeartRadio, and many others, and at WallyTalksHouses.com. where right now you can register for Wally's upcoming webinar happening Saturday, June 3rd at 10 a.m. on how to get wealthy by investing in real estate. Visit the website, click the registration link at the top of the page right next to the subscribe button. Thank you for listening to Your Home Sold Guaranteed radio show with Wally Kerr on 1520 AM and 95.3 FM KOKC.